Hello, I'm Anthony Hughes, and I'm here to tell you about Dorico 6.2, which is available right now and is a free update to all of you who already own Dorico 6. If you don't, this might just be the time to jump in. This update is all about adding greater capabilities to some of our core notation features. So, while the focus is in very specific areas, something here might just make all the difference to your workflow. I'm going to be talking about new features for guitar notation, harmonics, and how we handle changing musical context at repeat bar lines. Let's dive in. Dorico 6.2 allows you to style guitar notation using appearances found in many UK publications. Guitar bends can now be rendered using slurs rather than angled lines in staff notation. And for tab, you can choose between still using the curved arrow or showing the bent to note in parentheses along with a corresponding text label to indicate direction. Harmonics on tab staves can now be shown in enclosures, natural harmonics in diamond enclosures, and pinch harmonics in triangular enclosures. And, as is customary for these house styles, you can also label natural and pinch harmonics with NH and PH lines. And for the tapping guitar technique, you can now achieve this appearance with a simple engraving option. And finally, with guitar notation, for some conventions that use rhythmic stems on tab, it's now possible to center align those stems on slashes. As well as the guitar stuff, there are a couple of other harmonics features concerning stringed instruments. It can be useful to indicate the string, as well as the touched pitch required to produce a natural harmonic. And this can now be achieved using the new Show Open String property. Remember to set the desired string as well. For artificial harmonics, you can also show the sounding pitch in addition to the stopped pitch, again with a property. And as this pitch can often be quite high, you can add an octave line and then use a new property on the octave line to affect only the sounding pitch note head. It's now possible to add harmonics to notes using the playing techniques Popover. So you can open the playing techniques Popover with Shift-P, then type simply NH for a natural harmonic, AH for an artificial harmonic, or PH for a guitar pinched harmonic. And you can set properties for the harmonics as you create them by typing longer strings into the Popover. For example, an artificial harmonic set to partial 5 node 2, or a natural harmonic using the touched style, and I'd like to display the open string, which I'll set as the E string. It makes creating harmonics much easier and quicker. And it's worth making you aware of this new section of the engraving options harmonics page, where you can now choose the note head set that will be used for each type of harmonic. And this affects guitar harmonics as well, of course. For repeat bar lines, repeat endings and repeat jumps, we now show cautionary and restorative items. This means if you change the time signature, key signature, or clef in the middle of a repeat section, including repeat endings, first, second time bars, and so on, or at a jump, such as a DS or DC, Dorico will now warn you of any differences at the rhythmic position you're jumping to. And when you're jumping forward, for example, to the final ending in a repeat ending, where necessary, Dorico will show restorative time signatures, key signatures, and clefs as a reminder of what's still in effect. What's more, Dorico is generally more knowledgeable about the state of time signatures, key signatures, and clefs at each position in the flow, so will now account for changes to these within repeat ending structures and always render music correctly. This is something that Dorico just takes care of for you. It's the default in new projects. Of course, we don't want to mess around with your existing scores, especially if you have accounted for this manually in the past. So in notation options, there's a new repeats page that gives you the option to track changes to clefs and key signatures for each flow. Once you've turned on tracking, like I say, this happens by default in new projects. Then the new repeats page in layout options becomes enabled and gives you the option to show these cautionary and restorative items in parentheses. One other small improvement to repeat bar lines, you can now choose to show changes to time and key signatures before or after repeat bar lines. That's not all, of course. There are many other new features included with Dorico 6.2, and I recommend that you read the version history to get a sense of them all. Here are my favorites. Features aimed specifically at professional engravers include being able to set the thickness of beams, careful with that one, hide rhythm dots in specific cases, careful with that one, and control the offset of split stem notes. It's now possible to set different enclosure types for the different types of rehearsal mark sequences. And you can set specific key commands for each type as well, meaning it's now super easy to create multiple sequences of rehearsal marks in the same project using letters, numbers, or bar numbers. You can now create a percussion legend for only the currently sounding instruments. And if you own Steinberg's full Etude piano library or the free Navia harp virtual instrument, when using the auto playback template, these will be used by default for piano and harp. The last thing I want to mention is a change that we've made to selecting notes with the mouse. It's always been possible to click a note stem to select all notes in a chord and to click a beam to select all notes under that beam. That's very useful, but it did have the unwanted side effect of making it more difficult to select single notes. So we've made a change to the way that we pad selection areas for items. That means it's now easier to select individual notes. The flip side of this is that you have to be even more precise now when clicking a stem or beam, which can be a little more tricky at low zoom levels. So we're giving you the choice whether or not to enable this new selection behavior via a preference at the top of the editing section. And remember, especially if you do choose to prioritize note heads, Select More will select all notes in a chord, as will Tab, as long as there's nothing else attached to the chord. Dorico 6.2 is available now, so fire up the Steinberg Download Manager and grab it today. Please do like this video, if indeed you did like it. Subscribe to the Dorico channel to find loads more content all about how to make the most of your software, and click the bell to be notified of more videos like this one. I'm Anthony Hughes. Thanks for watching.